presentation, it's also on that webpage. Okay. So moving along quickly, we are going to actually spend the rest of the evening in our breakout rooms. And so the way that we're asking, Laura, actually, I'm just going to let you do this part. If you could do this part, Laura.
Sure. So I am going to click and open the breakout rooms in just a minute. You have the ability to join the rooms, but I can also help people navigate in between the spaces if need be. So when I hit the open rooms button, you're going to see this, the breakout rooms, which is circled in blue on your screen. It's a series of 4 squares. You'll see that appear in your Zoom toolbar when I open the rooms. And then you'll see that I have the rooms broken up by last name. So please join the room that is the most appropriate for you. Folks who have last names A through F are going to stay here in this general session. G through M are going to navigate to breakout room number 1. So when you see this menu, you're going to hover over the blue number and you should see the word join show up. And if you click the word join, it'll take you to that space. Last names O through W will go to room number 2. And then Miss Monica will be providing information in Spanish in a room as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the open rooms. Catherine, is that all right?
Yep, that's great.
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Nerd.
Sure. So again, if you have any difficulty seeing the breakout rooms option or navigating to the breakout rooms, please feel free to unmute or send me a message through the chat and I can help you navigate to the space that you need.
We are not seeing the breakout rooms button. If you don't mind sending us over to room number 1, please.
Yep.
Sure thing.
Also, you might have to click on that more. If anyone else doesn't see it, you might have to click on the more and then you can see breakout room. Otherwise, just ask Mr. Nardell and she'll send you over.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Yeah, same here, not showing up.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't see anything either.
So one at a time, could the first person who spoke tell me which room you want to go to?
Room 1.
Okay, is that Levine?
Yep.
Last name? Thank you. All right, and then the next group.
Heber and Heather Willis.
Thank you so much.
Breakout room number 2.
3.
Thank
2.
you.
That's right. 2. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Nardo, I'm not seeing it either on mine.
Okay, no worries. I'll move you, Ms. Gagan.
Thank you.
We see the breakout room tab, but our name is not there.
So I did create these earlier in the day, so I apologize if you don't fit into that, but A through F are going to stay here in this general session, if that applies to you. And if you're at the end of the alphabet, you would go to room number 2.
Mr. Nardo,
Yes.
Can you send me to breakout room 3?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Send Miss Chung over as well.
Yep.
Can you send me over to breakout room 1?
Yes. All right, anyone else need support?
Can Caroline Schwabach please be sent to room 2?
Sure thing.
Can you send April Massey to room number 1?
Yep. Okay, I think we are good. I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute, but I'm here if you need any more technical support.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. And thanks to everyone for your patience and just organizing that. So now we're in our breakout room. There should be about 10 to 15 families now in each room. The kind of the purpose of us going into breakout rooms tonight is that we can, as much as we can, make this more interactive and giving you a chance to really kind of start a conversation around what we're talking about tonight, and you can participate in that. I'm going to give Dr. Van Laer and Kaya and Reem another chance to say hello because they're here with us tonight.
Hi, I'm Michelle Van Laer.
Yeah.
I'm Kaya DeMarco. And I'm Reem Omar.
And Kaya and Reem kind of gave up their snow day a little bit to help prepare for this presentation. So they're going to lead much of this presentation tonight. And then Dr. Van Laer and I are going to be here for support. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. With our launch. So Reem, do you want to explain what a launch is as part of the PBL process?
So once the launch is pretty much just getting to what the project is all about, giving you all the background information that you need. Maybe some research will also be included into that part, or just like getting in with your groups and seeing who you're going to work with during this project.
And Kai, do you want to talk about an entry event?
So in my experience, an entry event is just like a simple kind of assignment or task often where basically you're learning, like Reem said, the background information behind the unit or project that you're about to start and kind of how it's going to apply to real life.
So all of our projects usually start with a launch. Some of our bigger projects would have big launches. Smaller projects would have something very small. Our projects range in scope. So some teachers do projects that last an entire quarter, and some teachers do projects that last only a few days. Some teachers do projects that last one class period. Our project this evening is going to last 43 minutes. And your project today is going back to the goal of that workshop, is to really dive deep into what the key tenets and design of Arlington Tech is in a way to help you be confident in your decision and commitment to Arlington Tech. So my launch is I pulled a clip. This is not one of our students. This is actually from Stanford, but I love his message. And so I'm going to play you a bit of his message this evening.
So everybody wants to know why Stanford is now the most sought after university in America, arguably the world. You guys have all seen the record low acceptance rate for this year's class of 2018. But nobody's really asking the students themselves whether they actually find what they're looking for. And yes, we find the perfect weather, the beautiful campus, the amazing football team, all those things. But in reality, we don't necessarily find a perfect education waiting for us at the farm. Maybe it's a little provocative to say in this audience, and honestly, I was a little bit disappointed until that magical moment when I think each of us realized in our own way that the point was not to receive a great education, but to create our own, and to shape it for the unique challenges that await our generation in a world that's more complex, uncertain, and connected than ever before. So now when I think about...
Yeah. I apologize. I just tried to pause the video and I switched slides. So really that's the big idea behind Arlington Tech is you join this community, you are part of the creation of your learning. You change that role, you become part of the creator. You work with your teachers in a very different way. You work with other students in very different ways than you would in a traditional classroom. So the point's not to receive a great education, but to create your own and to shape it for the unique challenges that await your generation, which some of which we don't know what those are going to be. So we want you to have the skills, not just the content, but the skills you need to attack those problems. And that's what our hope is in the design of this instruction through Arlington Tech. So driving questions. Students, who wants to talk about driving questions?
I can mention them really quick. So basically a driving question, we have one at the beginning of every single unit or project, or really just any like main activity, I guess, that we're doing. And for example, tonight is what does learning look like at Arlington Tech and is it the right fit for me? However, in your classes, it'd be something like, what is the purpose of this, and this, or how does it connect to your daily life or something like that? And so it kind of just introduces the project and provides opportunity for students to think outside of the box and creatively about how they can potentially either come up with a solution to the question or explore it further.
Yep. So your driving question this evening is, what does learning look like at Arlington Tech? And is it the right fit for me, right? Like, we want you to be very confident knowing that this is what you want out of high school. This is what you hope to experience for your learning and for your community. And that driving question drives further questioning. So we don't expect you to have an answer to this. When a teacher gives a student a driving question, they don't expect the student to be able to answer that question. What this teacher expects is that the student asks more and more and more questions about that question, which really drives their inquiry. That's how you become that creator. That's how you become that investigator as part of the learning process. So we start all of our projects with the driving question, and then pretty quickly we go into the needs to know. And I'm going to ask our students to lead us in the needs to know.
Yeah, I can go. The needs to know of the project is the section where I personally think it matters the most, because these are all the questions that you want to be answered to do your project in the best way. So say, for example, you're doing a project about building a doghouse or something. You need to know what type of material do you have available, what type of math are you going to be using to actually build the doghouse, all these certain things so that you can plan out everything really well. So for ours, everyone's going to do an individual brainstorm of what their needs to know for our driving question today is if Arlington Tech is the right fit for you. So technically this is going to be a chance for you guys to put any questions that you're having, generally speaking, that you would want to be answered during this breakout room, so that at some point during it, we can either address them or make sure that they're talked about towards the end if they're not going to be included in our presentation.
So take a minute. In a classroom, the teacher might give everyone a few minutes to kind of brainstorm in silence. Maybe that they would break up into small groups and kind of talk about what questions they have for this. Just for the logistics of this evening, I'm just going to give everyone a minute or two, and I'm going to invite you to type your needs to knows into the chat, and making sure that everyone can access the chat. If you can't, if you could just speak up, because I never checked that ahead of time. But and then throughout the presentation, we're going to make sure that we're addressing your needs to knows, just like throughout the learning pathway, throughout instruction. Teachers make sure that needs to knows are addressed appropriately throughout a project. Okay, great. I saw one needs to know come in. Great questions. I'm going to give everyone another minute. Michelle, as the final questions kind of pop in, do you want to share an example of how you've done needs to knows in your classroom and why they're important?
Yeah, I think that one thing that Reem said is true. Usually we've given the outline of what the project is going to be. And so students are looking at the rubric and looking at the project and asking questions about what they need to know in order to be able to get to that project. And hopefully, because the project is like something that I'm going to have to do and I have to figure out how to do that, the needs to know are questions like, how the heck are we going to do this? And what do you mean by this? And so often they'll take words right off of the rubric and say, what do you mean by symbolism? What's that? Or what did you mean by propaganda? What is that? What is that? What are you talking about? And so that will get us going even before we even start the content, some questions about what's coming up.
Yeah, and students can't be self-directed learners unless they're asking questions. Too often students are being asked the question, the teachers are constructing the question and giving the questions to the students and not inviting them to construct the question. And if the students aren't being invited to construct the question, the students aren't given that opportunity to become that self-directed learner. And so that's why the needs to know, it looks very different in different classrooms. Sometimes it's as easy as writing, calling out questions and writing them on the whiteboard. Sometimes it's filling out a Google sheet, which is what you see on the slide. And there's a lot of different ways it happens. Keep on bringing these questions in. Our students, Kaya and Reem, they're going to be in charge of making sure that these questions get organized and answered throughout the evening. So you feel free to keep on adding questions to this list. Kaya, what do you want to add?
Do you want me to answer some in chat if they're like simple ones or?
Yeah, that would be great. Yep. Because some of the stuff is going to be, we've anticipated your questions and we are going to answer some of these throughout this evening, throughout the rest of the slides. Some of them are real quick and feel free to answer those right in the chat. So let's move forward. So PBL kind of starts with that launch. The driving question is such a critical element and the needs to know. And so, kind of thinking again about what the role is for the student in the project-based learning classroom, it's that the students are being pulled through the curriculum as opposed to being pushed. Too often it's, the entire curriculum is structured, the questions have been asked for the students and they just have to absorb the content and reproduce the content. We are asking big questions and we're giving students a pathway in order for them to be self-directed down that pathway, ensuring that they are still making progress towards those learning objectives. So our classes are standards-based. Just an Algebra 1 class at Arlington Tech would have the same standards and the same assessments as an Algebra 1 class at Washington Lee in Yorktown. But our teachers, the method of instruction would look different because our teachers are designing project-based learning experiences around those standards as opposed to maybe direct instruction or modeling, which would be very common in a typical classroom. And Kaya and Reem, you stop me if there's questions that come up that relate to the content that we are discussing, right? So on top of that, so content and the standards are critical to the instruction. But that's just like one package on the vehicle. So imagining PBL as the vehicle in which we pursue our learning. One package is that content, but the skills are on that truck as well. The opportunity to have personalized learning, to give students autonomy, to become inquiry learners, the growth mindset, cross-curricular or interdisciplinary opportunities, all of those packages get loaded onto the PBL truck. And we have an opportunity for students to experience these things through this curriculum, which is why we are so committed to project-based learning at Arlington Tech.
I was just going to mention, one of the people in the chat asked if they have not had as good of experiences with PBL projects in the past. I'm assuming this is referencing middle school, obviously. Would Arlington Tech still be a good fit for them? And I feel like personally, middle school projects are a completely different ballgame from Arlington Tech projects. It's not necessarily that they're not as difficult, right? You can still have a really challenging project in middle school,
But in middle school, there's a very large group of kids, and they did not choose to come to a school where they know that they're going to be doing PBL, right? So at Tech, you have a unique experience where all the students have chosen to commit to trying their hardest to participate in PBL projects. So you're not working with people who are going to be as much of, duds of groups who are not interested in learning the way that you're learning. So I think that that's a really big point when you're coming to Tech.
Great, thanks, Kaya. So after the launch is setting up the project. After the launch, the students would go into what's called the learn phase. And the learn phase is where we really drill into the meeting the standards. So the teacher has defined exactly what the standards are that need to be met. And these are the learning standards that are defined by the Virginia Department of Education. So each of our courses has the same learning standards as all the courses across Virginia public school systems, right? So the teacher would organize those standards into a project, and in the learn phase, those would be the learning objectives. And the teacher then would design instruction around those learning standards. Now, when they design their instruction, they're going to do that in response to the student's needs to knows. So that's how some of the personalized learning comes in. And they're going to design the instruction in a way that gives the students an opportunity to be more self-directed. So workshop model is very common in our classrooms, inquiry-based activities, labs, that kind of thing. There's still going to be direct instruction. That's still an important method of instruction, but it's not going to necessarily be the only or primary method in the classroom. So for this evening, what we're going to do is we're going to give you an opportunity to look at this learning style inventory. And this is to think, again, very, very clearly about who are you as a learner, and what do you really want, or what do you get most excited about when in the classroom? And Dr. Van Leer, can you drop the link? Do you have that open? Let me, because I don't want to turn off the slides. If you go to the for admitted students page, there's the link to this PDF. If you could drop that in the chat for me, Dr. Van Leer.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Yep, so she's going to drop in the PDF. I'm going to invite you to open the PDF. And then go through this. So I'm gonna mute my mic. I'm gonna ask that everyone stays muted and just give you guys, this is just a thought exercise to go through this. I like to discuss in small groups. Yes, no, sometimes. If you answer no, are you excited about learning this or experiencing this, right? Like, do you want to experience growth here? That means that, that's because that's what's going to happen at Arlington Tech, right? So it's not about yes means you're the right fit and no means you're not a right fit. That's too black and white. That's not our community. Students come in with a lot of different skills. Some students come in and they've had really bad experiences with collaboration and they don't like the idea of group work, but then they come to Arlington Tech and they find that the group works very differently than they've had in the past. A lot of our students come in and they haven't had good experiences with presentations, but they come to Arlington Tech and project after project after project, they build these really strong communication and presentation skills. And pretty soon, by December, it doesn't scare them anymore. It's not something that they're worried, they get worried about. And so just giving you an opportunity, thanks, Dr. Van Leer. So she dropped the link into the chat. And if you could go open that up and then just silently on your own, kind of think through some of these things and thinking about what your learning style is. And then if you have questions, if that prompts you to ask another question, put it into the chat. So I'm going to mute myself and give you guys a minute to read it. All right, actually, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on. Keep this document open, if you will, and continue to kind of think through it and see if that kind of prompts some more questions that you might have about Arlington Tech. Kaya, Reem, when you kind of came in, do you think you answered yes to all these questions? Where do you think you fell on this inventory if you wanted to share from your experience?
I guess I'll go first. I would say I definitely fell under yes for things like just things that I enjoy doing, for perhaps like working on hands-on activities or kind of like my learning style. However, a lot of these skills are definitely learned in your first year at Tech or your first couple months. So I wouldn't be worried if you're saying no to things like, I'm good at critical thinking, or I'm good at organization or writing or something like that, because those are definitely skills that you're going to gain throughout your high school experience as well as just being at Tech for your first year.
And to add on to what Kai said, I don't think I was a critical thinker when I came into Arlington Tech. I really didn't know how to ask questions about really open-ended questions. And I think throughout the process of my 3 years here, I've learned to develop those skills that I didn't have because of like the different people you meet, and then everyone else teaches you like different strategies that they have to actually learn that skill. And you just get to work with many different people, so you can like learn off of them and then they can learn off of you. So, yeah.
I want to add to that when I came to Arlington Tech, I said no to most of the questions. But then Arlington Tech does a great job at teaching their students how to, manage group work and stuff, especially in the first few weeks of school. So even if you answer no to most of the questions, the teachers are going to teach you how to manage all of this. So don't worry about that.
So I would say I often get asked about, if students leave Arlington Tech, what are the reasons that they would leave Arlington Tech? Usually it's because they don't feel like there's a fit in terms of the learning style. And that's why we're really kind of drilling into the learning style this evening. And I would say that it's more about what's motivating. Is it exciting to kind of push yourself and challenge yourself to develop these skills? It's not that you have these skills already. It's that you're excited to kind of push yourself and develop these skills and to work with others along doing the same thing. If this isn't motivating to you, if working in groups and doing presentations and asking big questions and stumbling through big questions isn't motivating to you, that's usually when we see students say that this isn't the right fit for them. Did you want to add anything there, Dr. Van Laer? Okay. Let's move on. So we're going through right now this project-based framework. You can find a PDF to this. The text is too small for you to see this now, but you can find a PDF of this on our website at the For Admitted Students page as well. But we went through the launch. We're in the learn phase, which is where we're really kind of drilling into the learning standards. And then we'll transition into the create phase. And that's where like the project starts to come together, whatever they're building or constructing, or maybe there's a debate as part of the create phase. And then we end with the reflect phase. And that's kind of the life cycle of what we mean by PBL. So that's what PBLs, that's what a project is at Arlington Tech. It's very structured. It looks very different in the 9th grade than it would in the 12th grade. In the 9th grade, there's going to be a lot of teacher direction and a lot of structure. Even by the end of the 9th grade, the teachers are going to start pulling away those teacher supports, those teacher structures and scaffolds, but there's still going to be a lot compared to what an 11th or 12th grade project would look like. So how does that classroom differ? And it's really just a big change in the role. And you can see in a traditional classroom that the student's role is really to create, improvise, and present, right? To reproduce the content. But in the project-based learning role, the teacher and the student, they almost share the similar roles, and they work kind of as co-facilitators. The students are starting to ask questions and put together plans and do some of the research autonomously and in collaboration with the teacher.
I think for this side, it's important to note that I feel like a big concern that my parents and like other parents when I was coming into this was like, well, what does the teacher do then, right? Like, what is their role in the classroom if the student is leading their own instruction? And I think that the teachers play a really important role actually in like the PBL process, because they're there to provide resources. They can help you with like literally your entire project and kind of just help to make things run smoothly, as well as provide the content in the beginning. So don't think like my child's just going to be coming in here and like having to learn all of this English grammar themselves. Like you're given all of those tools to learn the content in order to create your project, right? So you're not just completely left hanging.
Okay. So again, Kaya, Reem, just interrupt me as we go if there's questions that can be addressed by the content that we're talking about. So for grading, actually, Dr. Van Leer, do you want to do this slide for me? Talk about how we
Yeah,
should
definitely. And I would love to hear, I think Kaya has some good ideas on this too, and Reem. But I think it's important to note that we do a lot in groups, but grades also are highly dependent on individual work. So I think one of the concerns that people have is that, well, what happens if I'm in a group that doesn't function highly, and then my project doesn't turn out well, and my grade suffers as a report? Like, these are all the stressors that students have when they're working within groups. But in our setup here, you can see that the learning outcomes, and that's individual work. So that will be, you'll still have tests, you'll still have individual work they have to do, maybe worksheets or quizzes or activities that you're doing on your own, reading quizzes. Those all are still part of your grade, and that's 75% of your grade. And then the projects themselves are 25% of their grade. And those are even broken down even more into the project grade for what you actually produced, the product. And then you also are graded on your collaboration. So at the end, during the reflection phase, students are asked how their group functioned, what went really well, how their peers did in the collaboration, who was a strong leader. And then students are graded on that collaboration as well. Kai, go ahead.
Okay, so I think also like a big concern is, like you mentioned, the projects and being graded, like if my group isn't functioning properly, right? And I feel like a big thing too is that you have that opportunity to conference with your teacher periodically throughout your project to mention like, hey, this group member is not pulling their weight, etc. So that really helps with that. But also knowing that when you're doing that PBL project, it's giving you the resources and knowledge to be able to honestly really easily and quickly complete your classwork and homework. So just knowing that a lot of your grade is that classwork and homework and, you know, participation in quizzes, but by doing the PBLs, you're getting the experience and the knowledge to easily complete that homework and classwork, which as you go and get used to the PBL process, makes the amount of time that you're spending on classwork and homework assignments a lot shorter and a lot quicker, because you've already been applying that knowledge. If that makes sense.
And the projects aren't everything. The projects, remember, are the vehicle for the learning. So we visit some project-based learning schools, they put so much on the project that the students spend more time thinking about constructing incredible projects that they kind of forget about the learning that was supposed to be connected to the project. We've been very intentional into making sure that we structured not only our grades, but our curriculum and our learning activities so that the learning is the heart and the project is just that vehicle that connects to the learning, that gets students excited about the learning, that helps students ask deep questions about the learning. And that's what's also represented in this grading structure.
I think there's a question someone asked was, how much time do you spend on group projects versus individual assessments? And really, I think it matters on how long the project is. I have had some projects that lasted like a whole semester or a whole year, and some were just like week-long projects. So during that project, there are certain parts of it that you will only be graded on. Like, did you work on this part that you planned to work on from the beginning? Or just like how you communicated well, and just like your how you like worked with your group members. And then individual assessments are throughout the project and throughout the quarter. And I think it matters really just how long the project is, because there are like many variations of that.
Yeah. And don't get intimidated by the idea of like working on a project for, you know, 3 weeks, but also having homework and stuff on top of it, teachers make it really doable for you guys so that you know exactly what's coming. They often have like a game plan set out a week or two in advance. So you know, hey, I'm going to have this homework this night, but I also need to make sure that I'm communicating with these group members. And they also make sure that you have easy communication channels with your group members so that, you know, if you have, like, you always write down an agreement, for example, at the beginning of your PBL saying like, if someone is not able to make it to class, then they will have to do all the assignments that we assign them based on like what's left over, et cetera, stuff like that. So making sure, you know, like you're not going to be it's overwhelming at first, like the idea of it, but when you're actually actively doing it, it's not too bad.
So the grades are your grades, and that's what's reported on your report card. We also do something at Arlington Tech. We focus so much on skills. We focus on kind of those core learning skills and then those core community or cultural skills. And so we provide feedback to students along the lines of these skills as well. We have a very structured rubric that allows students thinking about where they are in terms of developing towards these skills. And they'll self-assess where they are kind of regularly, and then teachers will also provide an assessment of where they are. And again, you know, most ninth graders are going to be starting in the initiating progress category, and depending on what your strengths are, you might be approaching or meeting, exceeding. Some students, you know, I struggle. I studied engineering and worked professionally as an engineer. So I had really strong critical thinking skills. I thought of myself as a creative problem solver, but I really struggled with kind of traditional creativity tasks. And I would say I'm still kind of approaching and meeting, you know, making progress in that category. So there's not kind of like, you know, and this is kind of gets back to the growth mindset about always kind of improving and looking for opportunities to grow in terms of these skills. And so that's also something unique that we do at Arlington Tech by giving students an opportunity to self-assess and receive formative, non-evaluative feedback on their skills, which is, again, what professionals do, right? I mean, all of us, we receive, you know, in our quarterly reviews or however your organization does it, you receive feedback on your skills and your skills development. You make plans with your employer for professional development. And we want to give our students that same opportunity through the skills review process. So dual enrollment, I know I saw some questions about dual enrollment. Reem, do you want to talk about dual enrollment since you're in it? And Antonia?
Yeah, and Tony and I can talk about it. But dual enrollment, I think, is one of Arlington's like greatest strengths and reasons as to why I came to Arlington Tech. And I'm sure there's a lot for other students that are at Arlington Tech. Dual enrollment is an opportunity to take college classes while you were still in high school. So you do get that college credit while you're in high school. It's not like an AP class, because in AP class, you have to take a test at the end of the year to get that credit, and then you may or may not even get it. Dual enrolled credits are so students can start taking them up until 10th grade, which I think there's only like 1 or 2 classes in 10th grade, but in 11th grade you can have your full course load to be taken, like all your core classes can be taken dual enrolled, and in 12th grade as well. I personally have taken advantage of that, and I know Antonia has taken advantage of that, and we are getting both our associates in science with the amount of dual enrolled credits that we are planning to take. And Antonia, if you want to add anything on, you can say it.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I came to Arlington Tech because of dual enrollment. I thought it was a great opportunity because you're not only saving time, you're also saving lots of money. So with me and Reem, we're saving 2 years of college, so it's around like $100,000 saved. So it's a great opportunity that I highly recommend anyone to take. And I have also seen some students taking dual enrollment even in the 9th grade. So I know there's like a Spanish class that you can take in 9th grade. So yeah, it's a great opportunity throughout high school in Arlington Tech.
And dual enrollment also offers the ability to complete your gen eds if you're not going on that computer science path. For example, I'm not on the computer science track, but I'm on track to complete like my first year of college, at least in gen eds and stuff, to make sure that, you know, again, like you're saving money and you don't have to bore yourself in college with those classes. You can just get them out of the way.
Yeah, and also even if you don't want to go to the computer science path, but you want to go further than your gen ed, you can take most of your classes in Arlington Tech and then take like 4 or maybe 3 classes at Nova, so directly at Nova, to get your associates in like liberal arts or social sciences or maybe only sciences. So yeah.
So many of our students are taking advantage. Almost all of our students access dual enrollment in some capacity. Some of our students are taking full dual enrolled course loads, which is what Reem and Antonia talked about. And so they're on path to earn, not just their high school diploma, but that associate's degree as well. Both these students tonight, most are going on to university. They're just using that as a way to kind of knock out a lot of credits ahead of time. And so if you're not taking those, if you're not on that pathway, you can earn what's called the Certificate of General Studies, which kind of knocks out all of your gen eds, which would be required at all the Virginia schools. So these are transferable courses that are accredited through the Virginia Consortium of Colleges. And so the content, the curriculum, the syllabus is actually identical, like in a Comp 101 class, it's identical at Arlington Tech as it is at Nova, as it is at UVA, as it is at Virginia Tech. So those are classes that are transferable, because many students come home and they try to knock out gen eds at Nova, or sometimes they knock out gen eds on an online class at another Virginia university. And so those are accredited and structured in a way that they're all transferable. So that's an incredible opportunity for our students there. And then they can also take some dual enrollment in our CTE classes as well.
And then also when you're in a dual enrolled like Nova class, it also provides you access to all of Nova's like kind of just like amenities, I guess you could say. Like you can use their tutoring programs, their libraries, basically any of the resources that you would get as a full-time Nova student, you can receive as a dual enrolled student. So that's also really beneficial. And then I bet like Reem and Antonia can talk about this more, but in terms of like enrolling in universities, from the ones that I've seen or like heard from, you still enroll as a freshman. They like to keep you like in your cohort. So like you don't immediately jump to being a junior. Usually you start as a freshman still.
Yeah, so you apply as a freshman, but then once your credits transfer over, which is usually like October, then your status changes, which is actually great, because then that kind of gives you priority in registration and some other things, but they still kind of bring you in as a freshman so that you get the freshman dorm and the freshman experience. So we are running so close on time because I scheduled this for 7 and we're like 5 minutes to 7. And you guys have such awesome questions. So I am going to go over this evening, and I apologize for that. So what I'm going to do is, by all means, if you can't stay past 7, we are going to get this recording up, and so that you can access the recording from the website for anything that we didn't get to this evening. And I'm going to go quick as I can so that no one has to stay too late. Okay. So outside of the dual enrollment, we also have this capstone experience, which is really defining to Arlington Tech. It's the culmination of not just the project-based learning, but all the CTE courses that you've taken. And our students would spend in their 12th grade year, they would spend half of their day, so their morning, taking core content at Arlington Tech. And then in the afternoon, some students, usually around 11 o'clock, they leave school and they report to a job site, either as an intern, maybe they're working as a project consultant or as an independent researcher. So dual enrollment and capstone, a lot of times these are what really defined our students as when they are applying to colleges. And this is the feedback we have gotten from universities across the state, that this is what they're looking for and this is what they're seeking out. And these are why our students are so desirable at these universities right now, because they have these rigorous college classes, and they also have this incredible work-based learning experiences. So after you go through the learn, where the teacher's really giving you an opportunity to engage through the learning objectives, the project would start. And we're just not going to have time to do the project this evening. It's also just not the right setting for us to do it virtually. So I'm just going to talk about what the project would have been for us this evening. Before we do that, actually, we want to talk about what that looks like. So when the students get into the project, when they switch into the create phase, that's when the groups start to form. And Kaya, did you want to talk about how that happens? Because you already mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just mention it briefly. So essentially, it depends on the class. Normally, at the beginning of the year, teachers will be assigning groups just randomly, not based on anything in particular. But slowly as you go through the year, teachers definitely open up the possibility for you to work with people you choose to work with, which definitely helps with just the flow of the PBL process and learning who you work best with, but also challenging yourself to work with people who you haven't worked with before. And so you start out by making an agreement, as it says there, a working agreement, which is really important. It's kind of the baseline of like rules for your business almost. And so kind of just creating those general rules, like I said, where maybe, like I said earlier, if a student is not in class, then this is how they will communicate with them and you have to inform your group if you're not going to be there, etc., things like that. And just kind of like working protocols about like whose job will be what, and giving roles to people like group leader, time manager, resource director, things like that are assigned to students at the beginning so that you have a clear understanding of everyone's role before you start the project.
Great. So also kind of during the group work and the teaming and the working agreement, one of the things that could come up is an opportunity to consult with your client. Many of our projects are client-based, so the students are constructing the project with a client in mind. And so they have this opportunity to meet with the client, understand what the client's needs are. These are organizations from outside of Arlington. Public schools. Sometimes it is an organization within Arlington Public Schools. Maybe it's another group of students in our building. Maybe it's another school, private company, NGO. We work with a lot of different organizations as our clients and also as our subject matter experts. So a lot of times we also bring in opportunities for professionals to serve as the subject matter experts for our students in the project. So our project this evening, if we were in person and it made sense to do it, is we've given you a lot of information about what learning looks like at Arlington Tech. We were going to ask you simply just to do a Venn diagram. And so you can just kind of think through that this evening, since we're just not going to be able to do that together, but create a Venn diagram thinking about what have you learned about Arlington Tech and what's this image of Arlington Tech now that you're becoming familiar with? And then who am I as a learner? And then where is that overlap? And does that overlap? Does that give me enough confidence? Does that make me really feel comfortable with pursuing my high school education at Arlington Tech? And that's really what we want. We want you to feel very confident in coming to us at Arlington Tech. Students come to us with lots of different interests and a lot of different skills and a lot of different in a lot of different areas, right? So there should be overlap in some capacity. We expect that our student body is extremely diverse. And so I just wanted you but it's important that you have the confidence in that. We are an option program. Students choose to come to us. And so it's a little bit different than the neighborhood high schools. And it creates a very tight knit community for us because of this opportunity to choose our learning environment. So after a create, so the create is it's going to be a big part of the project, right? I mean, there's going to be a lot of iterations in the create. They're going to prototype something. They're going to design it and build it. They might have to go back, meet with the client again because it didn't meet the client's needs, go back. They might need to go back to the learning because it's clear that maybe they thought they mastered that learning standard, but they're not able to actually construct something from that learning standard. And I don't mean like physically build things that some of our projects they're physically building things with hammers. Construction is writing a paper, constructing an argument. There's a lot of different types of projects. When I say construct or build the project, there's a lot of different mediums in which that comes across. But all of our projects, after kind of that create phase, we always end with a reflect phase. And that's, again, an opportunity for the students to think about, where were they successful? Where did they need more support? And they communicate that with their teacher. I really struggled with this, and in the next project, I really need some more support here. They can communicate that with their group members. Sometimes they're going to be with the same group in the next projects, and so they need to think about, well, what worked really well in our collaboration and what didn't work well in our collaboration. And so the reflect phase is a really important part of the PBL journey. You would, of course, go back to the driving question and the needs to knows, which is what we're going to do this evening, if you have time to stay with us a little bit longer. So you would go back to the driving question and think about, where am I? Do I have, where am I in this rabbit hole? Like, how many more questions did we get? What direction did I go in? Is there a direction I want to pursue at another time? And where do I feel, where did I land on this driving question? And then also looking at your needs to know, making sure that you really got, most of those questions answered, right? And so that's what we are going to do now.
I have a couple questions written down that were like a little more not as text, like it'd be easier to answer them.
Let's do those, Kaya.
Okay. So the first one is like specifically was talking about like attention problems or like how can you be successful in using self-regulation. So for me, I personally do not have this issue. However, I've worked with lots of students in my PBL groups who do have this issue, and some of my friends do, so I can give a general answer. Essentially, I feel like PBL is actually a really great way to like kind of work with, attention problems is just a general term, I guess. But like it really allows you to have that hands-on experience, and there's lots of different aspects. You can be jumping from part to part instead of having to sit down and maybe just do like, math, repeat, right? It's more so there's a bunch of different aspects you can jump to, which I find really helps me focus more kind of. And then also making sure that like you're communicating with your group members to let them know like, hey, I'm going to be unable to complete this task by this time because I'm really struggling to focus on it. So if I could have support on that, or if I can have a slight extension in my due date on that within our group, that would be really useful. And I've had that happen a lot in some of my groups, and it's totally understandable. It happens all the time with students having other outside commitments or issues like, completing their work on time, right? And so I feel like there's a lot of flexibility within the PBL model to help with attention struggles.
So we also offer support through students through the IEP process and then also through an instructional studies period. So any student that receives kind of a more structured support to meet those learning needs, we have that in place at Arlington Tech.
And then briefly touching on just like electives, a lot of it was answered in the chat, but if anybody else wants to speak on this, basically like there's two types of electives, I guess you could say. Most of them are CTE, which is career and technical education. And so there's a lot of those available, which are more like technical classes, but we also have a couple other like single period, well, not a couple, there's a lot of them, a lot of other single period classes, which allow for a little more creativity and more flexibility in your pathway.
There is a quick question about how many students are accepted to enroll in ninth grade at AT for next year. I think that might mean overall, like what is the number of ninth graders that we will accept?
We accept 150 students into the ninth grade class. And so that process will be ongoing because there was 150 offers extended, and you're part of that first group. And then depending on who accepts and declines, we'll move to the wait list. And then actually that process extends typically throughout the summer because folks move out of the county and so that process kind of is ongoing. At Arlington Tech, actually, a little bit different than the other schools. We accept students only in the 9th and the 10th grade, and we only accept students at the beginning of the year. We don't accept students mid-year because it's so important that students come in, and we've designed so much of our instruction about onboarding students to the PBL process. It's really disruptive for a student to come in mid-year. And so a little bit different than the other option schools, we do only accept students at the beginning of the year.
I had a question about some live projects that would happen in computer science, and question about did computer science classes partner with outside clients, and what would that look like?
So our computer science program is really specific. The way that the teachers run it is almost like the students are each working as project consultants, and maybe they're paired up, and they're working on something very specific to what kind of program they're learning at the time. I'm going to connect you. I know I'm going to connect you with our computer science teacher. He absolutely loves to talk about the work that his students are doing. And so I'm going to connect you with him so that you can learn specifically about what kind of projects are. So I'm going to make sure that you get his contact information.
Just to add on to that, I know for the capstone project, there are many students who do work with like tech startups using their computer science knowledge. So that is a way for them to like use their knowledge in the actual field and with other types of companies.
Yeah, and it really just depends if the student's kind of going after database design, if the student's going after web design, if the student's going after cybersecurity. It really is, we talk about personal learning in our computer science class, it's very personalized. What other questions do we have that need to be addressed?
I had one more main one that was, how will I learn or, gain management, like time management / organization skills throughout this process? And I know a lot of students come into tech having, a good basis of those skills, but also a lot of them don't. And a big part of like the freshman year experience, and especially the first semester, is really working on and making sure that you're like nailing down those time management skills. And I will say that you get the hang of it really quickly because you have to. And it just kind of all falls into place. And if you need further support on it, teachers are really willing to help you with that and create schedules and stuff. And you can practice different techniques and everything for time management organization.
I saw some questions about colleges and college acceptances, and I just wanted to address that. We have 2 seniors in our room, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone, just like broadly speaking, that our students are accepted across schools in Virginia. Our students have gone on and been accepted to all of the big schools in Virginia. Lots of our students explore schools outside of Virginia as well, and those dual enrollment credits go with them in and outside of Virginia. Antonia Ream, do you want to share any of your plans?
Sure. So
Put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
I want to go either to Georgetown University or UVA, and I know that UVA will accept most of my dual enrollment credits, so that's pretty great. But also, I just wanted to like mention some of my friends who are seniors now. One of my friends is applying to Harvard, another one applied to Stanford. So it really, Arlington Tech is a great way to like kind of put you above, I don't want to say above, but like put you in a higher range of like students in the country, basically.
And my plans, my number one school I want to go to is Rice University, all the way in Texas, but that's okay. I also want to go to UVA, which I think is an option for many students at Arlington Tech, and most Virginia schools are like a good option for students at Arlington Tech. I said Virginia Tech, because a lot of the credits transfer. And also to add on about our senior friends, I know there are a lot of people that are going to like HBCUs and like have applied. Like one of our friends got into Spelman. We have like other seniors who are in university or college right now. Some of them go to like George Mason, others go to like Christopher Newport. So we have like a wide range of different students who are applying to like all different types of universities and colleges. So yeah.
Last year, most of our students ended up going to Virginia Tech, and it was a small class. That's just where their interests grabbed them. This graduating class is a little bit bigger, and so their interests are a little bit more diverse. And it's exciting to see how interested and the acceptances come in. So we get a lot of really positive feedback from our Virginia partners, at our admissions officers at the Virginia schools, and have seen a lot of great acceptances for our students. So where else do we have with questions?
Oh, I also wanted to mention, I know you probably already sent it out, Ms. Steinmetz, but like that flip grid for more general questions that can be answered, or like going back over things like dual enrollment, capstones, electives, sports, things like all of those basic kind of like general level things, we answered in that flip grid.
Yep, I'm going to make sure that I send that again so folks get access to that. Our student leaders created that flip grid with some frequently asked questions and answered those there. So I'll make sure that's included in the follow-up to this session tonight with the recording. I did see a question about the languages. I just wanted to make sure that everyone has a chance to review the structured course pathway. So Arlington Tech's a little bit different. Our students do come in as a cohort and they stay as a cohort. So they take the same core content, which is mapped to the Advanced Studies Diploma pathway, which is why the world language requirement is a requirement. And we have a lot of different options. Some students take, continue on in Spanish or French or whatever they were learning in middle school. Some students decide to choose a new language. Some students take American Sign Language because they weren't super interested in a traditional world language. So they take ASL, or even Latin is a great class for students who want to explore something new. But the course pathway is really important, that you review the course pathway. At the neighborhood schools, students might be able to move around classes. But for our students, the nature of the program, the support that we provide to the students, and the opportunity for our teachers to work in interdisciplinary teams makes it important that our students remain on cohort and they're taking core classes in the same capacity. So that means our 10th grade teachers are serving. Our 10th grade teachers, we have all of our students taking chemistry, and those chemistry teachers are working closely with the 10th grade English teachers, and that's how we're developing supports for our students at the grade level, and also developing interdisciplinary learning opportunities for students at the grade level. And that's the basis for the structured course pathway.
Yeah, that was a question asked earlier, was do we collaborate across classes? So that's a big part of that, is staying with your group or something. So you can collaborate across classes. For example, right now we unfortunately had to write a research paper, but it wasn't that bad. We had to write a research paper in chemistry, but we're then going on and editing it in English class and then bringing it back to chemistry to finalize it and add the science aspect and everything. So there's a lot of things that cross up between your core classes.
Yeah, but also when I also kind of cross paths. So I remember I took an entrepreneurship class at my CTE, and we had a project with our barbering class. So the students that were taking barbering and us, we collaborated and worked together in a project. So that was pretty cool.
I think that we have hit most of the ones in the chat. If we've missed any, do you want to just say that we're going to wrap up here, and then if anybody wants to stay for a question?
Yeah, let's do that. So thank you for coming this evening. On the screen now, you can see if there's questions that you want to ask at a personal level. By all means, feel free to email myself or our principal. Actually, you know what, that just reminded me. There was a question around construction in the building. And so I do want to make sure that people know that Arlington Tech is part of the instructional project, the instructional pathway, the IPP. Sorry, lots of I's, lots of P's, sorry. So we are a program, and so the instructional programs are being discussed at the APS school board level, and the discussion will inform what's happening with our building. So that we've done lots of renovations at the Career Center, and we'll continue to do some small renovations to meet the needs of the growth of Arlington Tech. But we will at some point do kind of a full reno of the Arlington Career Center. That was supposed to be happening now. That got tabled with a lot of other capital projects last March. And so we're waiting for the school board to complete the IPP process, which is going to happen at the end of next month, before we have a timeline for the new construction project. If you have specific questions about that, please email Ms. Chung, the principal who introduced herself at the beginning. She's the principal of the Career Center, so that's our campus, right? We are a program at the Arlington Career Center campus. If you have questions specifically about the program, feel free to email me. If you have questions about special education, feel free to email one of our assistant principals, Miss Jessica Baker. There's also a lot of information on the website, and I'll also make sure that this recording and the Flipgrid that Kaya mentioned and the resources that we shared will also get sent out as well. So if you don't have any other questions, feel free to sign off. Thank you for coming this evening. We love seeing you here, and thank you for being patient with us as we ran about 15 minutes late. If you do have any more questions, hang back. You're welcome to stay, put questions in the chat, or just have a conversation with us, but we'll stick around a couple more minutes.
And I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here, Ms. Steinmetz.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nardo.